Have you ever loved someone so deeply that it physically hurt when they pulled away? Have you ever texted someone, watched three dots appear, disappear, appear again, and felt your chest tighten with every second that passed? Have you ever replayed a conversation over and over in your head, searching for the moment you said the wrong thing, the moment you ruined something that was never really yours to begin with? If any of that sounds familiar, I need you to hear me clearly right now. What you're feeling is not weakness. What you're feeling is not love. What you're feeling is an addiction. And it has been quietly destroying every meaningful connection you've ever tried to build. Let me say it again, because I know some part of you is still resisting this. Your anxious attachment is not a personality trait. It is not something charming about you that makes you care deeply. It is a pattern. It is a cycle. And it is repelling the very people you are trying to hold on to the most. Here's the brutal truth nobody has told you directly. Every time you double text after they went quiet, you did not strengthen the bond. You showed them that your peace is negotiable. You taught them that distance gets them your attention. And the part that breaks my heart is that you did not even know you were teaching them. You thought you were fighting for love. You thought you were showing them how much you cared. But what you were really doing was shunlian to them, to see you as someone who will stay even when they barely try. Every time you wrote that long, desperate message at midnight, the one where you spilled your whole heart and asked for nothing in return, you thought you were being vulnerable. You were. But you were also being undisciplined, and the person on the other end of that message did not see your heart. They saw your neediness. And neediness, my friend, is the fastest way to make an avoidant person run in the opposite direction. Now, I know what is happening inside you right now. You are thinking, but I can't help it. When they go quiet, my whole body feels like it's on fire. I have to reach out. I have to know if they're okay. I have to fix it. I have to fix us. I know. I have been there. And I need you to understand something before we go any further. What you are about to learn in this video will change the way you see every relationship you have ever been in, every breakup, every situationship, every person who seemed perfect but could never give you what you needed. You will finally understand why you kept choosing the same unavailable people, why you kept getting close to people who could never meet you where you were. And most importantly, you will learn exactly how to break this cycle permanently. But there is a condition. You have to stay with me until the very end. Every single word in this video is designed to rewire the way your nervous system responds to silence. Every section builds on the last one. If you skip ahead, if you leave early, if you convince yourself you already know what I'm about to say, you will miss the breakthrough that is waiting for you right here. So make a commitment to yourself right now. Promise yourself that you will not click away until the final second. Promise yourself that you will sit with the discomfort of hearing truths that might hurt. Because the pain of hearing this is nothing compared to the pain of living inside this pattern for another 10 years. You deserve to understand why you do what you do. You deserve to understand why they do what they do. And most importantly, you deserve to finally break free from the cycle that has kept you stuck, heartbroken, and chasing people who were never capable of chasing you back. This is not just another video about attachment styles. This is not surface-level advice telling you to work on yourself without showing you exactly how. This is a complete psychological breakdown of what is happening inside your brain right now, why it developed this way, and precisely how you can rewire it starting today. So take a breath, settle into where you are, and get ready, because everything you thought you knew about love, about yourself, and about the people who couldn't stay, it is about to change completely. Let's begin. You asked yourself that question. You made that promise. Now let us build on what we just established and get into something far more important. Let me walk you through what happens inside your head every single time this pattern shows up in your life. I want you to read this slowly. I want you to sit with it. Because once you see this pattern clearly, you cannot unsee it. And seeing it is the first step to breaking it. Here is how it always starts. There is a person, someone who caught your attention the moment they walked into your life. They were different. They were mysterious. They did not chase you the way everyone else did. They did not need your validation. They had their own life, their own world, their own schedule. And that mystery, that independence, that quiet confidence, it lit something up inside you. Now here is where it gets dangerous. The more unavailable they seemed, the more your brain told you they were worth pursuing. Think about that. The less they gave you, the harder you tried. The less they reached out, the more you wanted them. The further they pulled away, the tighter you held on. Your nervous system registered their distance as a threat, and your response to that threat was to pursue harder. That is not love. That is a survival response being mislabeled as affection. Now let me walk you through the actual cycle, because if you have been in this pattern, you know every single step of it by heart. Step 1, you meet someone who feels different. They are calm, they are collected, they do not seem to need you. And that feels exciting because you are used to people who need you, who depend on you, who lean on you so heavily that you feel suffocated. But this person, they give you space. They do not text you constantly. They have their own life. And for the first few days or weeks, that feels healthy. That feels balanced. You think to yourself, finally, someone who is secure, someone who will not drain me. But then something shifts. You notice they do not need you the way you need them. And that triggers a deep unconscious panic inside your chest. You start wondering if they like you enough. You start analyzing their texts for hours. You start wondering if you said the right thing. You start needing more reassurance, more connection, more proof that they are as invested as you are. And the moment you start needing more, they start needing less. That is not a coincidence. That is human psychology at work. When you increase your pursuit, their nervous system interprets it as pressure. Pressure makes avoidant people retreat. So they pull back slightly. Maybe they take longer to reply. Maybe they seem less warm than before. Maybe they mention they need space or they are busy with something. And here is where most people lose the game entirely. Instead of recognizing the pullback as a signal to slow down, you double your efforts. You text more. You ask if everything is okay. You send long messages explaining yourself. You ask if you did something wrong. You offer reassurance before they even asked for it. You try to fix it, you try to fix them, you try to fix the relationship before it even had a chance to develop a problem. But every single message you send, every single word of reassurance you offer, every single time you chase them when they pulled away, you are teaching them exactly what kind of person you are. You are teaching them that you will stay even when they barely try. You are teaching them that distance earns your attention. You are teaching them that your self-worth is negotiable the moment they decide to show up. And the worst part, you do not even know you are doing it. You think you are being caring. You think you are being present. You think you are fighting for what you want. But you are actually feeding the exact pattern that will destroy this connection. Now here's what happens next. And if this has happened to you before, you are going to feel this in your chest. They pull back again. Harder this time. Maybe they go quiet for a day. Maybe they go quiet for 3 days. Maybe they go quiet for a week. And during that silence, you spiral. You replay every conversation. You analyze every text you sent. You convince yourself that you messed up. You convince yourself that if you just find the right words, you can fix this. You send another message, maybe 2, maybe 3, maybe you call, maybe you leave a voice note, maybe you text them when you know you should not. And in that moment, the version of you that texts when you should not wait, the version of you that cannot sit with silence, the version of you that chases when you should stand still, that version is not protecting the relationship. That version is destroying it. Because here is what the avoidant person sees when you do that. They see someone whose emotional state depends entirely on them. They see someone who will not be okay unless they respond. They see someone who is not whole without their presence. And nothing kills attraction faster than seeing that someone needs you to function. That is the pattern. That is the cycle you have been living inside without even realizing it. You pursue, they retreat. You pursue harder, they retreat further, until one day they are gone. And you are left wondering what you did wrong. You are left blaming yourself. You are left thinking you were not enough. But you were never the problem. The pattern was the problem. And once you can see this cycle clearly, once you understand exactly how it plays out every single time, you finally have the power to stop it. That is what we are going to do next. Let me explain something that will completely reframe how you see this entire experience. The reason you cannot stop chasing is not because you love them. The reason you cannot stop is not because something is wrong with your heart. The reason you cannot stop is because your brain has been chemically trained to treat their silence like an emergency. And your brain responds to emergencies with urgency. Every single time, That is not weakness. That is neuroscience. Let me show you exactly what is happening inside your head when you see someone go quiet. Because once you understand the chemistry behind this, you stop judging yourself for it, and you start doing something far more powerful. You start rewiring it. Here is what neuroscience tells us about the human attachment system. When you form a connection with someone, your brain releases a cocktail of chemicals that make you feel good. Dopamine is the main one. Dopamine is the same chemical that fires when you check your phone and see a new message. It fires when you send a text and get an immediate reply. It fires when someone gives you attention, validation, or emotional connection. Your brain learns very quickly that this person's presence equals pleasure, so it creates a loop. You see them, you feel good, you want more, you seek them out, you feel good again. That loop is normal. That loop is how all healthy attachment forms. But here is where it goes wrong with the anxious attachment style. The loop does not just fire when the person is present. It fires most intensely when the person is absent. And that is where the addiction kicks in. Think about the last time someone you cared about went quiet. Think about how it felt physically. Your chest tightened. Your mind started racing. You felt a wave of anxiety crash over you that was almost unbearable, and your brain immediately started firing in problem-solving mode. How do I fix this? What should I say? What did I do wrong? How do I make this feeling go away? The only way to make that feeling go away in the moment was to reach out, to send the text, to get the reply, to get the reassurance. Because the reply, the reassurance, the response, that stops the anxiety. That releases another hit of dopamine. That makes the pain stop. So you send the text, they reply. The anxiety drops, you feel relief. And your brain just learned a lesson that will control you for years. It learned that their silence equals danger, and your text equals safety. Every single time they go quiet, your brain flashes back to that lesson. It does not think, it does not choose. It reacts, it drives you to the phone, it drives you to the message, it drives you to pursue, because pursuing is the only way your brain knows to make the pain stop. That is why it feels like you cannot control it. That is why it feels like an addiction, because it literally is one. Now let me explain why unavailability triggers such intense attraction in the first place, because this is the part that confuses most people. They think, why do I always fall for people who cannot commit? Why do I always chase people who run? Why does my type seem to be someone who keeps me on edge? Here is the answer. It started in childhood. When a child's needs were inconsistently met, when a parent was sometimes warm and sometimes cold, sometimes present and sometimes absent, the child's nervous system never learned how to feel safe in connection. The child never developed a sense of, I can trust that this person will be there. Instead, the child developed a hyper-awareness of every signal, every shift, every change in the parent's emotional availability. The child learned to read the room before walking into it. The child learned to monitor, to manage, to fix, to hold things together. And because the parent's attention was inconsistent, the child grew up craving that unpredictable attention more than anything else in the world. Predictable love felt boring. Consistent affection felt flat. But the love that came and went, that showed up and disappeared, that was never fully reliable. That felt alive. That felt like passion. That felt like meaning. Here is the part that will make you uncomfortable. Your brain has been confusing pain with love for your entire life. The anxiety you feel when someone goes quiet is not the same as the peace you feel when someone is present. But your nervous system has been around chaos for so long that chaos feels normal. Chaos feels like connection. Chaos feels like you matter. Because when the chaos is there, you are alert, you are active, you are fighting for something. And fighting feels like caring, it feels like love, but it is not love. It is a trauma response being mistaken for devotion. And here's the cruelest part of all of this. The very thing that made you fall for them in the first place is the same thing that will destroy the connection. Their unavailability triggered your deepest wound. Their distance made your brain sound every alarm. Their silence activated every survival mechanism you developed as a child. And because their silence activated those mechanisms, you pursued harder. You held on tighter. You gave more of yourself. But the harder you held, the further they ran. And the further they ran, the more your addiction deepened. Because every time they ran, your brain registered it as a threat to the bond. And every time you chased them back, your brain registered it as a rescue. that constant cycle of threat and rescue, danger and safety, pain and relief, it is one of the most powerful neurological loops a human brain can experience. That is why leaving this pattern feels impossible. That is why walking away from someone you know is wrong for you feels like standing on the edge of a cliff and refusing to jump. Your brain is not ready to lose the drug, even if the drug is destroying you. But that changes now, because understanding why this happens is the first step to breaking it. And in the next section, we are going to show you exactly what is happening on the other side of this dynamic. Now, let me show you what has been happening on the other side of this equation. Because right now, your mind is filled with questions. Why did they pull away? What did I do wrong? Was I too much? Was I not enough? Did I scare them off? Did I come on too strong? And your mind keeps turning those questions over and over, searching for an answer that will finally make sense of the pain you are feeling. But I need you to hear something that might change the way you see everything. They were not rejecting you. They were running from themselves. Let me explain what that actually means. Because once you understand the avoidant person's inner world, you will stop taking their behavior personally. And when you stop taking it personally, you will finally be able to let go. Here is what nobody has told you about the person who kept pulling away. They were not cold. They were not incapable of love. They were not playing games or trying to hurt you. They were, in their own way, just as trapped in this dynamic as you were. But instead of pursuing when they felt afraid, they did the opposite. Instead of reaching out, they pulled back. Instead of expressing their fear, they buried it. Instead of asking for reassurance, they demanded space. And here is the part that is hardest to understand. They were not running from you. They were running from the version of themselves that they became when they got close to you. When you started needing more from them, when you started expecting consistency, when you started asking for emotional availability, it triggered something deep inside them. It triggered a fear of losing themselves, a fear of being consumed, a fear of being controlled by someone else's emotional needs. Because that is what the avoidant attachment style is at its core. It is a fear of losing autonomy. Think about that for a moment. You chase because you are afraid of losing the connection. They pull away because they are afraid of losing themselves. Both of you are running from the same thing. You are both afraid of being alone, but you express that fear in completely opposite ways. You reach out, they retreat. You demand closeness, they demand distance. And every time you reach, they retreat further. Every time they retreat, you reach harder. Both of you convinced that the other person can fill the hole inside you. Both of you wrong. Here is what is happening inside an avoidant person's mind when the relationship starts getting deeper. They feel the intensity rising. They feel you wanting more. They feel the expectation building. And the moment they sense that expectation, something inside them flips. Not because of you, but because of something that was planted in them long before you ever came along. They learned early that emotional closeness leads to losing yourself. They learned that when someone needs you, you have to give up parts of who you are to keep them happy. They learned that intimacy requires sacrificing your own needs, your own boundaries, your own identity. And so when the relationship starts demanding more from them, their nervous system does what it has always done. It protects them. It creates distance. It shuts down. It finds reasons to pull away. Not because they do not care, but because caring feels dangerous. Because closeness feels like erasure. Because giving themselves to someone feels like slowly disappearing. Now here is where the tragedy of this whole dynamic becomes clear. You both wanted the same thing: connection, intimacy, love, but you both went about trying to get it in ways that pushed each other further and further away. You reached because you feared abandonment. They pulled because they feared engulfment. And instead of recognizing each other's fears, you both read the other's behavior as rejection. You felt rejected when they pulled away. They felt pressured when you reached out. And neither of you had the tools to communicate what was actually happening inside. That is why this pattern keeps repeating. Because every time it happens, both people walk away thinking something is fundamentally wrong with them. You think you are too anxious, too needy, too broken. They think you are too intense, too demanding, too suffocating. And both of those conclusions are wrong. Neither of you is broken. Neither of you is the problem. You are both just running from pain in different directions. Now I need to be very clear about something here. Understanding why someone pulls away does not mean you have to accept poor treatment. Understanding their fear does not mean you excuse behavior that damages you. You can have compassion for what they went through while still recognizing that they are not capable of giving you what you need right now. Compassion and boundaries can exist in the same sentence. Understanding and walking away can happen at the same time. But here is what knowing this information does for you. It releases you from the burden of blame. It stops you from replaying every moment asking what you did wrong. It allows you to see the relationship for what it actually was. Not a failure on your part, not a reflection of your worth, but a collision of two wounds, two people who were not ready to meet each other where they needed to be met. And that is not a personal attack on you. That is just human psychology doing what human psychology does. Now let us go deeper. Let us find the exact moment this always falls apart.